The idea for My Name is Earl really came from my own life. My father, or stepfather, is named Earl. He married my mother when she was pregnant with me, but he moved into our trailer and took care of me like I was his own. And later, my mother did have my brother, who's African American and not of my father's loins, but he still stuck around, and he wasn't the best guy in the world. He was somewhat of a crook. I don't think he was as bad as some of the things Earl has done, but he kind of saw the light and started to change his ways, and didn't officially make a list, but he went around and kind of made up for some of the things he's done, and he's continuing to do that. So he's really inspired me to come up with this idea. I pitched the idea, which was basically the first act of the pilot, to Fox executives, because I thought it would be a perfect show for Fox. And I left the meeting thinking it went great, and they called me later that day and they said, nah, we don't think it's a series, but thanks for coming in. And that kind of pissed me off, but I woke up every morning at 4 a.m. for 2 weeks, and from 4 to 10, before I had to start work on Yes Dear, I wrote this script. Nice.
I got attached to the program. It was pilot season of last year, and like every director, I was out reading pilots and finding that there was really nothing I was excited about. And then I stumbled across this thing called My Name is Earl, and I read it, and I was about 10 pages into it, and I immediately put it down, and I called my agent up on the phone. I'm like, I got to meet this guy, Greg Garcia. This pilot is phenomenal. I want to do this thing.
I was very proud of it when I was done with it, and I gave it back to the people at Fox, and people that passed on it really liked the script. They said, you're right, this is a series. So they kicked it upstairs to their bosses, and unfortunately their bosses didn't agree and didn't think it was a series, and I thought it was dead. I was actually trying to figure out how to maybe do it as a movie, and I had lunch with some people at NBC who said they had read the script and they really liked it, and because they liked it, they wanted to have me do a show for them that season. And then I said, well, let's just do that one, because that one's already written and I like it. And so they kind of looked at each other, and then they decided, yeah, why not?
My agent called and we set up a meeting, and I walked into the room and I said to Greg, I'm like, first thing I said is, you don't look like a Garcia, because he's not a Garcia. And we sat down and we talked about the pilot and, you know, what I liked about it and what I would do visually with the show and what the characters would be like, you know, from a directorial standpoint. And we just kind of hit it off and agreed on the vision of this thing.
When Mark Buckland came in and started to talk to me about what he thinks the show should look like, you know, right away he was like, this thing shouldn't have any tricks. And that was music to my ears, because I felt the exact same way. And we just said, you know, this thing really should look like a movie every week. It was about then that I realized, you know, this was the guy that I should have directed. So he came on board, and then it was a matter of getting the cast together, and we had to get our Earl before we could cast anybody else. And we started a very long process of trying to find Earl.
NBC had told Greg, you know what, we're picking this up as a cast contingent pilot. If you find somebody great to play Earl, we'll make the pilot. If you don't, we won't. Jason and I and Greg laugh about our first meeting a lot. First things that happen is when you have a pilot, especially a cast contingent pilot, the network will have a list of people that they would love to see on their network. And at the top of that list was Jason's. So we'd approached Jason, you know, through his agents many times. Jason interested in doing this pilot, not interested in TV.
So I figured that was a lost cause, and we had auditions for about 2 months and had all kinds of people read for it. A lot of people did a good job, but nobody was perfect for it.
So we continue the casting process and find that nobody was hitting the part. And we'd go back to the agents, and the agent would say, not interested in television. And finally, Greg called personally. He said, just ask him to read the thing. Let him read it, and then if he's not interested in television after reading it, that's fine, but just have him read it.
I read the script, And I was really honestly surprised by it. I thought it read like a feature film, the first 30-something pages of a feature film. And I thought, okay, but I'm skeptical because it's TV. TV can be pretty corny, and this is something that I would see in a film if done right. And if done right, it would be up my alley, the kind of movie I would want to be in, I would want to watch. How much can you really take a show that's going to be on mainstream network television and make it feel like a movie? How do you really do that? Okay, that's interesting.
So we sit down and meet Jason Lee. You know, neither of us had met him before. We've seen his work, obviously, loved him as a skateboarder. So he comes in to meet, and he's all, you know, he's got a full beard going on, and he walks into the room, and he's totally sussing us out. He's like, who are these guys? Who are these TV guys?
I don't know these guys, so for all I know, you know, it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna miss things. How am I supposed to know? So it was being protective of my career, but also being protective of the material, which was absolutely amazing.
You could tell he was very on the fence about doing television. So the meeting, you know, we all talked about the show, and creatively we were all exactly on the same page. He looked at us, and we talked, and did a lot of this, a lot of questions, and then he walks out. And Greg and I look at each other, and I have no idea how that meeting went.
I was pretty drunk during most of the meeting, so I don't really remember it. So Mark's account, I would have to agree with whatever he said, but I was pretty drunk and pretty hopped up on crystal meth.
The next day when we found out he was going to do it, we called his machine to say, hey, congratulations, we're psyched you're going to do this thing. And we hear a message on his machine, yeah, this is Jason. Yeah, I picked up and went to Ventura for the day. I got a lot to think about. I'm not going to be reachable. I'm like, oh my God, the guy, he had to be wigging out because he was, you know, he's very trepidatious about doing television because he's a movie star.
Where's the director of this B movie?
I said, what do you think about facial hair for your character? I think he's got to have some facial hair. And he said, yeah. I said, you think maybe a goatee or? And he said, you know what? He goes, I look really funny with a mustache. He goes, trust me, a mustache would be hilarious. And he was right.
Where's my camera? Hold the roll.
Once we got Jason Lee, it seemed it was a lot easier to get a lot of other great people to come in and read for parts. Ethan was somebody that he and Jason were friendly before all of this, and a lot of people think that that's how he ended up on the show, but the truth is I had seen Ethan in some stuff and thought he was perfect for the role of Randy.
Greg had was watching, I think, Without a Paddle on DVD and listening to the commentary and really liked what Ethan was doing, and had heard that the director saying that Ethan was a really smart actor and talking about some of the choices he was making, and we liked him.
I had a stack of TV scripts. They're just awful, I thought. It was all just ridiculous setups for ridiculous, unrealistic jokes. And then I got to My Name is Earl, and the story and the characters were hysterical. It was the only one out of literally a stack that I not only read all the way through, but laughed hysterically while reading. And my wife is a manager, and she said, what the hell are you reading? And I said, I'm reading My Name is Earl. And she said, that's Jason's show. And I was like, what?
We did it, Randy!
Jason called me that day and said, hey, you're having my good friend come in. So it was just pure coincidence, but he was ideal for the part.
None of it seemed contrived or forced or phony, and I really liked Greg's smile. It seemed very genuine, and when he laughed, it seemed very genuine, and I just liked him a lot, kind of instantly.
We auditioned a lot of people for all these roles. Jamie Presley came in, you know, halfway through our Joy sessions.
She said the lines, who's the whore, in her audition, and she could have walked out right after that. I mean, she had the part. There was no one that was going to get the part of Joy but Jamie.
Yeah. Now put those teeth under your pillow, and maybe the tooth fairy will bring you your own. I can't say it.
All right, cut it.
I went in there like, so when do we start shooting?
Ready? And action. She just nailed it, and she didn't have to, she could have said nothing else, and we would have known that Jamie Presley was going to be Joy. And he picks it up, and he's looking at it, he smells it, and he licks it. And then Nadine Velasquez, we just, you know, was one of many people auditioning, and she was just beautiful and funny, and you kind of couldn't say no to that.
Yeah, I don't know what we're gonna do.
And literally, when I finished my audition and I was walking to the elevator, and all the executives and Greg and Mark and Jason were coming out of the room, Greg called me from the end of the corridor, and he was like, "Hey, Nadine," and I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "You're it, you're the girl," and I was like, "What?" And then everyone started clapping, and you know, that is probably never gonna happen again.
I know you don't have any money to buy beers, but the two ladies just left the bar. They didn't finish things. Here's napkins to wipe off the lipstick.
Thanks, Brad, man.
Eddie is somebody that I had always loved those Rubber Band Man commercials, and so I asked the casting people to bring him in, and he was great.